You and I are standing at the edge of a river plain that keeps everything alive. The ground is rich, but only if the water arrives at the right moment. Too much and the fields drown, too little and nothing grows, and yet people choose to live here anyway. That decision is the beginning of Sumer, and it is also the first question we have to hold. How do you build stability in a landscape that never truly sits still? If you imagine the earliest villages here, they are small and practical, but at some point the villages become something else. Storage rooms appear, temples rise, people stop farming and start managing grain. Others begin recording who owes what. The city does not simply grow in size, it reorganizes itself. And that shift leaves a signature in clay. The earliest writing we can see in Sumer does not begin with stories. It begins with lists, measures, and counts. It looks like accounting because it is. That is the first thread I want you to hold. Organization creates memory. A society that wants to coordinate labor and food must record it. Writing, in this sense, begins as a tool of administration, not as literature. You can feel how this changes power. A ruler without a record is a rumor. A ruler with a record is an institution. The more the system grows, the more it depends on records, and the more the records shape the system. That is why Sumer matters. It shows us the moment when memory becomes external, when a society starts to store itself in objects. Now Sumer is not a single kingdom. It is a mosaic of city-states. Uruk, Eridu, Nippur. Each one has its own god, its own temple economy, and its own identity. They share a culture, but they are not one nation. Sometimes they trade, sometimes they fight, sometimes they copy each other. That fragmentation looks chaotic, but it accelerates innovation. Competition forces specialization. Specialization forces organization. And that loop speeds everything up. Look at Uruk for a moment. By the late 4th millennium BCE, it is enormous for its time. It has monumental architecture, standardized artifacts, and a scale of coordination that does not happen by accident. This is not proof of a single dramatic event. It is evidence of a system that learned to organize itself. What makes Sumer distinct is not only the buildings, it is the economy underneath them. Temples are not just places of worship, they are also warehouses, offices, and courts. Priests manage food, labor, and ritual all at once. The sacred and the practical are not separate worlds. They are a single system. That system is powerful, but it is also fragile. It relies on timing, on trust, and on the stability of the environment. A shift in the rivers can strain everything. A conflict between cities can block trade. When you build an entire society on a delicate balance, the balance becomes the story. This is why Sumer does not follow a straight line. It rises, it strains, it adapts. The evidence suggests repeated cycles of growth and stress rather than a single uninterrupted march. The cities learn, they reorganize, they rebuild. And in that process, the culture becomes more layered, more complex, and more difficult to hold together. Now consider the people who made this system function. Not kings, not priests, but scribes. A scribe presses a reed into clay, recording barley, sheep, and workdays. It is routine, but it is the foundation of memory. That scribe might not know it, but he is building the bridge between his world and ours. This is how history survives, in ordinary hands. Yet even the strongest system cannot stop time. Languages shift, power moves, new rulers appear. What is remarkable about Sumer is not that it disappears, but that it disperses. The writing system continues. The myths continue. The administrative logic continues. Sumer becomes the past inside the present. There is a document that reflects this struggle to preserve continuity, the Sumerian king list. It lists rulers and reigns, some impossibly long. Most scholars read it as ideological rather than strictly historical. It is a political statement. Kingship is one thing and it moves from city to city. That does not make it useless. It makes it honest about its purpose. So when we talk about Sumer, we have to read two layers at once: the evidence of daily life and the stories people told to explain power. Those layers overlap, and they sometimes conflict, but together they show a society trying to hold itself together across generations. This brings us back to the first question: how do you build stability in a landscape that never truly sits still? Sumer's answer was organization: writing, administration, temples, and a shared system of memory. It worked for a time, and then it changed. Not in a single collapse, but in a slow transformation as new powers rose and old cities adapted. That is the real lesson of Sumer. Civilization does not simply end. It fragments, it transforms, it travels. If you follow the traces, you can see the system learning how to remember itself and struggling to do so. In the next episode, we follow the moment when that mosaic of city-states is pulled into a new shape, the rise of Akkad, and the first large-scale empire in Mesopotamia. The question shifts from how cities organize themselves to how a region is forced to become one.